Are you good to go?
I am. Seth is too.
Seth. We'd like to welcome everybody out tonight for our commission meeting on this, the 16th day of August, 2017. If everyone could rise and repeat the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'd like to recognize any elected officials. I see a mayor and some school board representatives and different other elected officers. The sheriff, he's always here. But but welcome you to our commission meeting. We'll go ahead and jump right into this. The first one I'm really excited about because I serve on the I help coach at the high school, and I understand some of the needs there, but I also serve on the Mike Ballard Tournament Committee. So the first item on the agenda is a presentation of donation of Carbon County School District from the Mike Ballard Fundraiser Golf Tournament. Rose Barnes and Frank Corey. And Linda.
Linda's got it.
Come on. School board members, superintendent, please join us.
They were hiding. Everybody come on in.
I don't know
You know,
if
we're
our
really
new
excited.
superintendent been introduced. I don't
No,
know if he
let's
has been
introduce
yet.
him.
Come on up, Mr. Hatch, or Dr. Hatch.
I'm Lance Hatch, Superintendent, Carbon School District.
What a
It's
great
nice to
way
meet you
to
guys.
come and get money.
We'll welcome you. We'll welcome you again to the community.
Thank you.
Happy to have you here.
We're really excited. This is the 8th year of the Mike Ballard Memorial Fundraiser, and we just had a great year. You know, we all worked hard, and it was a really good experience this year to work with the school district, and I want to thank everyone that participated and helped us, and I want to thank Christian, because Christian Briner, this was his suggestion that as we look as parents, you know, it's expensive for our kids to be in public school. It's expensive for them to have fees that they need to have, whether it's in sports or clubs or all various activities that they do in the school. And so Christian had talked about this for a couple of years, and you know, he made a very good point that not every child has a parent who can afford to help them. So we decided that, you know, this was something that I talked to commissioners about, that we wanted to try and help with, because we don't want, you know, if we can help in just a tiny way with any child, and, you know, it will make me feel good. And I know it will make the committee feel good and the commissioners, because there is a great need in the community. I hope for the sake of the community that they will this is a jump start for you guys, and that this will be ongoing through other, you know, events.
We've already had some discussions.
Yeah, because I don't want it just to go away, because I think it's very much needed in the community, and I think as we make it well known within the community, and it becomes more popular, and people know what you're doing, what we started to help you do, they'll jump in and help it continue. So, Christian, a huge thank you for this suggestion. And I want to take a minute and I thank everyone every year, and then I'm going to turn the time over to Frank and Linda. But I want to thank our committee, and that was Christian, Linda, thank you so much. Frank is like, you know, he wears so many hats, I can't even thank him enough for all he does. We had Casey. Casey has been awesome to have on the committee. He is just, you know, he supports us, he helps us, and thank you, Commissioner.
I never win. I always let everybody else win.
We even gave him our best player. He still can't win.
We had Misty Birch from the Castle View Hospital, Ann Anderson from radio station, Micah Sellis, excuse me, Seth Allred, Steve Carlson, our former superintendent, and he was great because he got us Alex Smith signed jersey, so you know, we got to give that to someone. Got that wasn't me. I actually been on it, but it wasn't me that got to keep it.
That's why we kept up in the bids.
That's why we kept it. It wasn't my money, so it was easy to bid. Bruce Dean, Tom King, our golf pro, and Jeff Wood. Jeff has been helped the last 2 years, and you know, in addition to his demolition derby, he helps us. So thank you so much.
I
Appreciate it.
don't know if it's because he wears a gun and has a badge that people just always give him money,
They
but
do,
he's
you know.
great at raising funds.
So we thank everyone, but I'm going to turn the time over to, and this year we took in, the amount that we collected this year was $20,680.30.
Wow.
Linda has a check for the amount excluding expenses that she will present, and I'm going to step back and let her do that.
Okay, I just want to thank everybody also. I mean, it always turns out just great every year. The community comes together, and like she said, the committee's awesome. Every year the recipient they always come together and work with us so well, and it's always someone that really needs it. I think this was such a great deal that we did for the students. We all know that it's needed in the community. So I go ahead and who's going to receive
Bruce
that?
is gonna. Well, you want
to say
give it to
something?
the high school. The high school's gonna deposit it, and then they're gonna disperse it.
Okay.
That
Okay.
well,
I'm not going to turn it down.
that's what we talked about earlier. If that's
Yeah.
okay with you. Okay.
So the check is $14,170.07. So there you go.
One quick thing, just today, a parent of a football player who knew that another football player couldn't afford the pay-to-play fee came into the office and said, I want to be anonymous. I'd like to pay that. So that's an example of what this will do for the kids in our extracurricular programs. It's very valuable. Thank you.
We couldn't be more proud to donate this money, and the one thing that we want to make sure of is that this isn't just a one-time thing. We set up this account, so we'll be working as the recreation department with the principals and the administration and the school board to come up with another fundraising idea so that we can continue. I don't know that we'll raise $20,000 a year, but I think we can do 8 to 10 or something like that. So I think with some frugal spending and stuff like that, the money can go very far. And we're just excited to have the opportunity from the commission to be able to do these types of things as a recreation department. When I tell other recreation directors in the state what we do and the programs we have and the money we raise, they're almost dumbfounded to know that that we do those types of things. So again, thanks to the commission for allowing us those opportunities. Thanks to the school board for supporting us, and hopefully the students you guys can make good use of that fund. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Item number 2 on the agenda is review and possible approval of a Utah Department of Health contract amendment for sexual violence prevention. Shelley Wright.
Hello, Commissioners. So last year was our first go-round with this grant. We just kind of got our feet wet, and we rewrote the grant. The RFP came out, and we received the grant again. So we're ready to go round 2 and get out in our school districts and educate the school personnel, our students, the parents on how to prevent sexual violence in our communities. We are using this grant money because we are both hitting Carbon County school districts and Emory County school districts. So
Great.
It's just to renew another year of the grant.
Shelley, how much does it increase by?
So the grant did not increase; it decreased. The first go round was for $19,200. That was when we originally wrote the grant. We kind of wasn't sure what we were going to end up with, how far we were going to get into the program, and so we turned money back. Unfortunately, we didn't spend it all. So when I had to write a new budget, I looked at what we went through last year, what I anticipate this current year. So I came up with $13,000, and they gave us that.
So in this contract, it says the original amount was funded $19,200. The
Yes.
funding amount will be increased. This is what it reads on here by $13,000. The new total amended funding is $32,200. Is that correct?
Well, unless that includes rollover money, because I don't know of it being rollover money.
That's just what I'm reading here. So if there's something that we need to correct,
I think the 13,000 they're adding to it's the same grant. They're just adding gear on.
okay. So
And
it's-
maybe
So
that's
it's just being
It's for
cumulative.
the next fiscal cycle is an additional 13,000.
Okay, so that makes sense.
so for the total grant for the 2-year cycle, okay, that makes
Okay.
sense.
Because a lot of these state grants, they'll just add an amendment for the next year. Then
And that's what it came
adding
in
on
as
to
an
it.
amendment, but we had to rewrite for it, and they gave it to us, and yeah.
Thanks.
No,
for
it
that.
talks about the new total amended amount being the cumulative of both amounts given, but you mentioned some was turned back.
Well, I didn't use it all, I guess is what I'm saying, and I was never told that it rolls over to the next year. So I just assumed that if whatever we didn't use, we send back.
Okay.
But
Just how
it's never been clarified to me of what happens with the unused funding.
Just how it reads, though, Christian, and if you read it the same, it doesn't sound like, I mean, it's just keeping track of the total amount given, and it doesn't show any having gone back.
Right.
It's written in state government speak, so it's semi-incomprehensible because I thought the same thing. I mean, it says the new total amended funding is $32,200. But
That's
apparently
why I was
it's
getting really excited.
it's really
an
not.
increase, but
It's
not.
it's apparently only $13,000 for
For the next
2018.
Okay.
So I don't know why they say it like that, but if that's the explanation, then I can. When you explain it, I see what they're doing, but they never come out and say the total amount provided is that.
Well, and in the grant procedure and the any restrictions or the description when we wrote the grant, it did not indicate rollover money. Usually, like my Children's Justice Center grant, it indicates rollover money, and this is I've never had, it didn't indicate rollover money, so.
We should probably verify with them if any of that money rolled over.
Right.
if it's
And
turned
there
back.
needs to be a correction on the amendment. It lists me as the contractor, which is what they did last year, and we caught it, and they had to redo it. And now I caught it this time, and they have to redo it again. So we're there, as soon as they reissue that corrected contract, I'll bring it back for your signatures. So right now I don't have anything for you guys to sign today, because they need to fix that. And then I'm happy to clarify on if it's rollover money.
Okay.
If it is, then that's awesome.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve based on the amendments that have been discussed and the contract that you bring us that has the corrected contractor signature spot.
I'll step down and second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
great, thank you. See you.
Item number 3, consideration of issuance of a request for qualifications for environmental consulting firm to seek brownfields assessment grant. Tammy Hersenbach.
Thank you, Commissioners. Last year, we went through this process, but we didn't have enough time, so we approved to go out and find a company to write the application for a brownfield grant through the federal government, but we didn't have enough time to actually implement that and have the grant written. So we've decided, instead of trying to rush it through and having an application that wasn't as complete as we wanted it, to put it off a year and do it this year. So we know that sometime between September and October that RFQ is going to be coming out again through the federal government, and we want to prepare for that. So at this point, we are asking that we are able to submit for a company to write the grant again. We're doing it in such a way, just as we did last year, the company that receives what's it going to call, the ability to write the grant, that's awarded the grant, or awarded the right to write the application, they will not be paid unless the grant is awarded to the county. And we're going to go back to the cities, so it will be a collaboration with Carbon County and the cities that want to participate, which will be a total of $600,000 if we get the grant for phase 1 and phase 2.
Just for the information of the public, what exactly is a brownfield, and what are they identifying for us?
This is a 3-phase grant process, and the grant that we're applying for will be the first 2 phases. The first phase is just to identify what brownfields are in our county, and that could be buildings with asbestos. It could be land that has some type of chemicals that have been on it.
For example, an old gas station that might have leaked, that is considered a brownfield because it has to be cleaned up before new development can go onto the property. So they're looking for those types of areas.
Could be where coal's been sitting and coal finds on the ground. It could be anything within the county. So we will end up narrowing it and identifying exactly where they will look, which cities, and whether it's Main Street or exactly where that's going to be. And then they'll identify if we have brownfields. And then phase 2, part of that grant would be, if we have brownfields, what will it take to clean up those brownfields? And that's all that this part of the grant is going to be for. Then at that point, we can reapply for another grant at the following year that would then say we need to clean it up, and they would pay for part of the cleanup. But that would not be 100% like this is.
Okay. And all of this has been presented previously when we discussed all of this last year. We just didn't have the time in order to actually submit for the grant. Sorry, Christian, you were going to say something?
Well, go ahead. I'll wait till you're done.
No, I'm done.
So, Tammy, you put on here that the proposal should come in by September 5th, so that it can be considered at the next county commission meeting. Is that correct? Okay.
Is that enough time? I think it's...
Well, that's my question.
I was told we only had to post it for a week, but if we can, should I post it for the middle, for the second meeting?
Our own ordinance says that we only have to advertise it once in our newspaper. I just wondered if you felt like that would be sufficient time to allow people to learn about it and then to get their proposals in. But it sounds like you think they'd be able to.
I think so, and the reason is I've already had 3 or 4 companies reach out to me that are interested, number 1. And number 2, if I send a copy of the RFQ to the state, Bill Reese with the state will actually send it out to other people. So I think other than just posting it, I think that there's enough time to get that out to the people.
Okay.
But we can postpone it to the next commission meeting if you'd like, in the middle of September.
Well, I'm just asking. If you feel comfortable, then I do. I just wanted to make sure that was a big enough timeline to get because they have to turn in 7 copies to us, and it's quite they have to tell us a bunch of stuff that they're able to do. So.
Right.
The economic advantage to this, just for everybody's information, is if you can go through your county and identify sites that are, before a bank will lend on certain properties, they require that a clean bill of health basically be put on these pieces of property so that they don't pick up an environmental problem, basically. So this goes through and says, okay, these parcels of property are clean, these ones need to be cleaned up, and then if you proceed with the grant, there are some matching monies to be able to clean up those sites and prepare them for economic growth or for a developer to come in and buy those parcels. So.
Well, I'll go ahead and it says consideration of issuance. Should we go ahead and give permission? Is that what we need to do?
Yes, and go ahead and allow this to be published and put out to the public.
I move that we allow this to be published and put out to the public, and that we put out the RFQ.
I'll step down and second that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you
Motion
very much.
passes. Thank you. Item number 4 on the agenda, review and possible approval of a memorandum of understanding with Southeast Utah District Health Department to provide storage area for trailers owned by the Health Department. Commissioner, this came about, the previous director at the Health Department had I guess a fairly large piece of property, and he stored all of the Health Department trailers that have all their stuff in it at his personal residence.
Let me cover that real fast. Yeah, okay. Sitting on the health board, it was allowed for him to store it on his lot. He did not charge or anything during the time of which he was a health department director, and did it as a favor or a benefit to the health department, so that they could have a place to store all the emergency preparedness equipment, a lot of the materials and products that the health department uses to support the various functions that they operate within. However, since he's retired, he has mentioned that he has other plans for that property and would charge the county rent, and has charged the county rent, of which we've decided that as a health department, and me wearing 2 hats right now, that it would be more prudent to enter into some type of an agreement with Carbon County, to where it could make, the health department can receive grants to improve part of Carbon County's space that we have available in exchange for a lease of so many years of the property to use the trailers on that property.
So the interim director has reached out to the county and asked that the piece of property directly behind the ambulance garage would then be fenced with a 6-foot secure fence, and put a little bit of gravel back there so that they could store their trailers there. So they're asking for an MOU to move forward so they can go after the grant and do that.
And Christian, where I sit on the health department board and am a county commissioner to possibly approve or move on this motion, do you feel that there would be any concern or conflict of interest there, since it's not really anything monetary that's being done other than receiving of grants?
I think by disclosing your interest in sitting on that board, and it's required that a commissioner sits on that board, so it's not simply that this is a private activity on your part. Carbon County is required to have a commission on that board, so I don't think the statute contemplates that you would have to recuse yourself from a voting action with the board on something like this. Plus, as you said, there's no money changing hands. This is beneficial to both the county in that it uses some space and helps improve some space for the county. It solves a problem for the health department and saves them money and the participating counties who fund the health department. So I don't see a problem with you voting on that.
With that clarification, I'll go ahead and, unless you have more discussion,
Nope.
I'll make a motion that we enter into agreement with the health department to allow them the use of that land in exchange for the discussed improvements to that land.
Okay, I'll step down and second that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 5, public hearing considering and possible approval of a recommendation from the Planning Commission for a conditional use permit for Global Carbon Strategies for Bear Canyon Methane Emission Reduction, Planning and Zoning.
Commissioners, this is Mr. Colin Kennedy from Bear Canyon Methane Emissions. Well, Bear Canyon, no, it's Global Carbon Strategies, correct?
Yes, Christian.
And this matter came before the Planning Commission, received unanimous approval. As Mr. Kennedy will tell you, this is a project whereby they are going to have a methane flare burning off methane that would come from the West Ridge mine. And so the whole point of it is to set up a methane flare and set conditions under which that will take place. Mr. Kennedy can explain exactly what the operation will be, though. And then, so I would recommend you allow him to present for just a minute and then open it up to a public hearing.
Thank you for letting me participate here today. I'm Colin Kennedy. I'm a vice president with Global Carbon Strategies Corporation. We're a Colorado corporation. We have an office in Grand Junction, Colorado. We've entered into an agreement with Westridge Resources and Andalex to acquire the Gob Bent Hole project that they have as part of the Westridge mine. That project essentially was operated by the mine to remove methane out of the mine, which was removed in order to protect the safety of the miners. Our plan is to operate that project exactly the same way that it was operated when the mine was in operation. We're going to connect a pipe to the methane extraction units. The pipe will be about 100 feet long, and it'll be connected to an enclosed flare. The flare is a pretty large piece of equipment. It's about 45 feet high, 12 feet in diameter. And then we'll simply burn the gas that would otherwise be emitted from the underground workings. You take those, the product of the volume of methane that you burn, you calculate what that volume is, that's converted into an offset, and then you take that information. There's a carbon registry in California. We'll register those offsets in California. Once it's on the registry, it's subject to kind of a free market of buyers who want to buy the offsets come in and buy the offsets. So, I mean, in a nutshell, that describes the project. Our intention is to essentially operate the project exactly the way it was when the mine had it, subject to the fact that we're now, instead of venting the methane, we're destroying the methane, and that's what generates the product of the operation. In terms of the overall level of activity, we're probably going to have one and a half people that'll be contractors working at the site. We're expecting to have people, someone at the site about 3 to 4 days a week. All of the activity of the site, though, will be remotely monitored from our office in Grand Junction, as well as an office or a setup in Price. And so we'll have 24/7 surveillance of the site, and we'll have an individual that will make a visit to the site and maintain the equipment three times a week. So that's it in a nutshell. If there's any specific questions.
Additionally, Commissioners, some of many of our standard CUP provisions are in here, such as keeping the area free of debris and refuse, providing weed control. We've also, one of the conditions would be to install a 6-foot fence around the property, which they've agreed to do, to promptly respond to any kind of spills or accidents of involving any hazardous materials or any contaminated waters. There's not going to be any, it sounds like there's not going to be any other fuels or water involved in this other than the minimal amount that would be burned off with the flare as the methane comes through. So it seems like a project that's going to have minimal environmental effect and minimal potential for environmental problems. But they've agreed to maintain the entrance to the property free of debris and obstructions and keep that clean and mitigate any dust as well. Those are all those are our standard provisions anyway in the CUP, and I've spoken with Mr. Kennedy, and they're willing and able and happy to comply with all of those conditions.
I would just add that this facility is located on state land, and we have a lease from Sitla to produce the gas. And under our Sitla lease, we have a comprehensive plan of operations that we have to file and get approved by Sitla. And that plan of operations will address essentially all of the same terms and conditions that were imposed on this project by the Department of Oil, Gas, and Mining. So we're really operating this at the same level of standard that the mine did. It'll be operated through Sitla because we will be conducting our operations on state land.
This facility sits at the end of a road, correct?
I'm sorry, yes, sir, it does.
So there will be a gate at the end of that road. Are there any other gates getting to this piece of property?
No, sir.
So is access to the public granted freely
Yeah,
to get up into there? That's what I'm asking.
Our intent and what we've discussed with county planning is there's a main facility area, Commissioner, you're right, and there's a pipe that comes down from that main facility area about 400 feet, and there's a gob vent well at the end of that 400-foot pipeline. Our thought was put a gate right there so that all of our facilities are behind a gate, and then around the main facility area itself, which is about an acre or two, we would fence that entire area so that we could avoid having any kind of vandalism or maintain some security of the site, limit the access. Once we're done with the project, and the project is projected to take about 10 years. I mean, the life of the project is about 2028. Once we're done, when we pull out of the area, we will we'll eliminate the gate, restore the road to its original condition, and vacate the property. So when we're done, we think the road will be a much better road because of the maintenance that we'll be doing on it over the life of the project, and we'll return it to the same condition that it would have been had we not been there and the mine had reclaimed the site.
As far as any type of travel to the surrounding areas, you won't be prohibiting or inhibiting any of that. This is just for the facility, the fence and the gate and all of that, so that there's not a disturbance to the property there.
Shortening of the current road by a couple
hundred feet. Couple hundred feet. And the road terminates at the far end of the site. So it's kind of a little bit unusual configuration. So part of the road is actually within the site area as it's currently established. And then our gate will be down from the main facility area about 400 feet. It'll shorten the road. I mean, it'll shorten the road by that amount. It's the road right now from Sea Canyon Road to our site is about 3.5 miles. So you'll be taking about 400 feet off of that road, put it behind the gate, then fence that so that we kind of avoid any problems with kind of trespassers or vandalism.
At that point, will there be a turnabout?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The only reason I bring that up is we have probably over half our crowd here that's very interested in public access to public lands.
Right.
So,
yeah, no, in the we're, as I was explaining to Christian earlier, we're in the same situation that the mine was in the sense that we both wanted the project to be, you had to maintain the road in order to make sure that you could get access to the site. We're a bit at a disadvantage because the mine had 24/7 activity, and it had lots of equipment on the site. And so its need to maintain the road was a little less intensive than for us because we're not going to have that same capability on site. So the 3.4 miles of the road is going to be upgraded in terms of the level of maintenance, so people who want to get access out there are going to find it a much more accessible road after we begin to do our operations out there.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
The Planning Commission bombarded you with a lot of different questions, and they very thoroughly made sure that everything was on the up and up, and I think that we could probably have the public hearing now.
Okay, we'll open this up at looks like 5:05 for public comment. Anybody that would like to speak to this, please come to the mic, state your name for the record, and keep your comments to new comments. Try not to reiterate things that other people have said.
I just have a couple questions.
Give us your name for the record.
Michelle Goldsmith, and I'm from Helper, Utah. And my two questions are, one, how are you going to manage, like, is this in the path of a flyway? Because I've read that other methane flares have attracted insects or birds, and it affected the pollination and environment around the places. And then the second thing is, the only thing I know about methane flares is what happened in Southern California, where people had to evacuate their homes because of a methane flare that went out of control. So those are the two questions I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we want to have him answer those at the end of the hearing?
Yeah, we can.
Do you want me to respond to that now, or?
And I don't know that, Christian, you can let us know. I don't know that this is a Q&A. This is more just a public comment period.
It is just a public comment period. If you want to allow an answer, that's fine, but I would think let's save those till the end, and let's see where we're at if anybody else wants to make a comment.
Okay. Seeing no one else eagerly jumping at the chance to jump up and speak, we'll close this public hearing at 5:06. And
if you'd like to ask Mr. Kennedy to
if you would
respond.
like to respond to those questions, you're more than welcome to, or you can do that at your convenience either way.
I think I can respond to it fairly quickly. We're in the process of working through our environmental analysis right now for the plan of operations with SITLA. We have no information that would indicate that there'd be any problems with the location of this site and any flyways. The other very positive thing about this site is it's extremely remote. There are no residences anywhere in this area. We believe that the equipment we're going to use is extremely safe. It's got a great reputation in terms of its reliability and performance. So I don't think you're going to have the same issues that you were confronted with in California, where you were flaring gas in or around residential areas. This is a pretty isolated location, and there isn't a lot of exposure from a public safety standpoint.
Thank you. Commissioner, do you have a...
It's just a public hearing for it. Do we need to
and
make a motion on
and
that?
approval?
Yes, this is also, it's also on
For
the
conditional
agenda
use
to
right
consider,
there. Okay.
to issue the conditional use permit.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
I'll step down and second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 6, public hearing considering and possible approval of a recommendation from the Planning Commission for a change of the Carbon County zoning map from C1 to R-1-20K on a portion of parcel 2-1644 for Dave Smith. Dave, how are you?
I'm very, very well. You're pretty well up to speed with that. I know Casey. I don't know Jake.
I sit on the Planning Commission. We've been reviewing it for quite a while.
Okay, so you guys are both up to speed on it. Basically, we're ready to zoom with the zone change. And
well, why don't you tell the public though, Dave, what you're doing, because they're the ones who are here to comment. It's
what we're
them
doing
that need to be educated on this.
It's on a piece of property from the corner of Robertson Lane and Highway 10 south of there. We're going to, or our plan is to have a subdivision there. As we do that, part of the plan is that they will actually change the access where Robertson Lane now comes into Highway 10. It will move south a few hundred feet, and it will allow the people that come out of Robertson Lane to go through this piece of property down the new road that we're going to construct. And so they will be able to access the highway at the peak of the hill rather than a couple hundred feet beyond the hill, making a much more safe route of travel for all of those people that come in and out of there. So I think there's a considerable benefit to the county as well as us. The UDOT's actually joining with us a little bit, and with their help and with the aid of the county and what we've been able to do, if we can get this all accomplished, we hope to have a road there.
So tonight though is not to approve that access road per se.
It's not.
You'll come back
But the access road is part of the
Part of the
zoning
plan.
change. We're asking for a zoning change for some lots there that we're going to do. And
So it's to move it from commercial to residential.
right, and without that
Zone.
zoning change, we couldn't obviously develop it and have a safer road. So that's what we're asking to do.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to tell the public before we start the public hearing?
No, I think we're fine. Thank you.
Okay, we'll open up this public hearing at 5:11. Anyone that would like to speak to this, please come to the mic and state your name for the record. Come on, we can't let Dave get off that easy.
I didn't let Kathy go up there.
Seeing, again, no one eagerly jumping at the chance to speak to this, we'll close this public hearing at, say 5:11, or no, 5:12, because we started at 5:11.
Commissioner, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the zoning change from C1 to R1 20K on parcel 2-1644 for David Smith.
I'll step down and second that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 8, update from Helper Revitalization Committee on a sustainable...
There's another public hearing.
Oh, I apologize. I skipped one.
I do that all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
We're just going to skip one. Public hearing and consideration of possible approval of a recommendation from the Planning Commission for a conditional use permit for Perpetual Power LLC for utility scale solar power plant, Equinta Land Solar Park. Todd is not here, and I assume you're with them.
Yeah, my name's Don Simons. I'm with Perpetual Power. And what we're looking to get is a conditional use permit for what will ultimately be a 100 megawatt solar, utility scale solar farm. The first one phase is going to be about 46.5 megawatts. And it'll be up over in the southwest, just southwest of Helper, up off the Equinta property, which is the Spatafor property. What else would you like to know? Right now, one of the things that was in condition that working with Todd on was some particular things that the county would like out of us regarding just stipulations of use of property, return of it, once it's not in use anymore. If we haven't had it in use for so long during that time that we have a period that we would have to then take everything out, put the land back, at least upon what we agree on. We're in the process of having Jones and DeMille. They've been working on a drainage study for us, which was a part of this approval for the conditional use permit, which we do have done. And we're thinking Todd might be here to be able to give him that stuff, but we'll get it emailed over to him.
I guess one question I might have is for the public, for everyone to know and be aware of, when do you plan on, best case scenario, construction? How long will that take? And then what will the usable life of the solar field be?
Best case to start, I think, could be possibly if we have everything arranged in as soon as 2 or 3 months from now. The construction process time, I'm going to say a year, but really it could be done in like 3 months, 3 to 6, with the grading and everything. Once you start working on it, the panelization goes really quick, and the lifespan, we've been basing upon 25 years, but the life of solar panels are increasing to 30 and 35 year. So it depends upon the end contract that we have. Of course, we want to keep it in use at least that long.
Okay. Just a quick note, as we've been working with this solar company, some of the solar companies that we've dealt with in the past have come in and asked for county subsidies, county tax rebates, and things like this. This company is coming in and not asking for anything from the county. other than some improvements on a road that we already maintain. They can take all the federal subsidies they want, and that's part of the game that they play, but they're not asking for the burden to be on our county and our residents, so they're coming in on their own. They're also asking that all of the work be done by local contractors and professionals. So,
which is actually unique to this particular company. None of the other companies have come in without asking for some type of county tax abatement.
And Commissioners, one of the conditions does speak to that. Todd had suggested, and I believe this was discussed at the Planning Commission, that one of the conditions be that there be a power agreement, or in other words, an agreement for the distribution or the sale of the power generated by the project, that prior to the county providing assistance with the road, that we be given provided with a copy of an agreement to sell that power, or at least some memorandum of such an agreement being in existence, so that we are actually working on a road that's actually going to be used. Does that sound right?
Yeah, originally that's a little bit backwards from when we first started talking about it, that we would be under contract to reimburse if something, say, went south on it and there was any money put in from the county. So that, I think, is still being discussed a bit, but either way, yeah, our intention is that it would be, you know, if it isn't beneficial to the county, then why should anybody have to pay for it?
Okay. If that's everything, do you have anything else you'd like to share?
I don't think so. I mean, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer what I can. And you know, I think the drainage that Jones and DeMille is working on will work out well with what they've come up with. So.
Okay.
All right.
Well, if that's all, we'll open up this public hearing at 5:17. Anybody that would like to speak to this, please come to the mic, state your name.
This is Tammy Ursamak. I'm the Economic Development Director for the county, and I just wanted to clarify Christian's comment. When they were in Planning and Commission meeting, what the Planning Commission had requested was that we have the right, not only would they be willing to pay for the road, and we'll put that in writing, that was one issue, but the other was that the county, cities, whomever, have the right to be able to purchase some of the power so that we have it right here locally. But that's it, thank you.
That would be through the UAMPS program, correct?
Or Rocky Mountain.
Or Rocky Mountain Power, okay.
My name's Harvey Howard, and I would just ask that when there's a project like this with this company, that they're held to the same reclamation bonding practices that we hold our coal mines and other businesses here. So I would just hope that in 30 years there's not a bunch of solar panels laying around. So
I think that was specifically what was addressed, but thank you. That's a great point.
That is one of the conditions on here. It says the site shall be restored to its natural condition within 6 months of the removal of the solar farm equipment.
Our energy companies, and I would agree with you, are very good stewards of the land. They do a great job at their reclamation. If there is no one else that would like to speak to this, last chance. We'll close this public hearing at 5:19. And I'll entertain a motion.
Commissioner, I will go ahead and make a motion that we move to approve the conditional use permit for Perpetual Power, and subject to the conditions already set forth by the Planning Commission.
I'll step down and second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item number 8, sorry. Update from Helper Revitalization Committee on a Sustainable Design Assessment Team grant Helper City was awarded.
Yes, sir. Thank you for allowing me to share what's going on with Helper. It's an exciting time. If you haven't been down our main street, I encourage you to travel it because there is renovation, restoration, all sorts of things happening.
Well, especially this week.
Yeah.
Can you state your name for the record?
I'm sorry, I'm Lenise Peterman.
Thank you.
Anyway, we were the recipients of the SDAT grant, and we're excited to share with the community what's going on. And part of that is to open up these community meetings to all of the constituents in Carbon County, because if there's a great idea or a nugget of something that someone can take and apply in their community, we'd love to share that. So to that end, I had provided to the commission various handouts about what the SDAT is, explaining that it's a program from the American Institute of Architecture, and that what will happen in September is a group of experts will descend on Helper. They'll have community meetings, and from that feedback, they'll huddle up and they will come back with strategic plans that can help us achieve a sustainable, vibrant community. So we're excited about it, and I hope you all can come out in September 6th, meet the experts and join us and see what comes of it, because it's, again, very exciting times, and momentum is with us, and we very much want to move Helper and Carbon County forward. So.
That's great.
Any questions?
Thank you for all the work you're doing. It does look great. There's a good vibe that's happening in Helper, and I hope it continues.
Yes.
And it's the Helper Arts Festival, right?
Yeah, it is. That will kick off Thursday evening. I also co-direct that with Kate Kilpatrick Miller. So Thursday evening is our historic Main Street Gallery Stroll. Please come out. We work with Price City and Culture Connection. They'll have their closing event on the Main Street. We'll have award-winning desserts by Lynn Wells, a young chef out of Wellington. And then Friday morning, we'll have the various vendors descend and set up, and we should be good to go by Friday afternoon. So come out, enjoy it, and hopefully buy some good art, have some good food, and visit with folks.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9, wildland fire update from the Division of Forestry, Fire, and Estate Lands. Jeremy.
The much anticipated update.
This has been a long time coming.
This is what, the third time I've tried to get here?
Yeah.
Jeremy Jorgensen, Carbon Enemy Fire Warden for Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. I apologize for being dirty. I was on a fire earlier today and didn't have a chance to go home and change before I had to come here. So
we're glad you made it.
So am I. Like I said, the third time I've tried this. I just have a list of stuff here for an update of what's happened so far this fire season. As of to date, there have been 16 fires in Carbon County. Most of those have been just a 1/10 of an acre, single tree type fires along the highway. Some of them have been by lightning, others by vehicles going down the road causing those fires. And along with the fires that we've been working on, we also have fuel reduction work in the process and ongoing right now in the county. Right now we have some fuel reduction work being done at Schofield Mountain Homes. It's been there, we've been there since 2002. Since 2002, with funds that we received from the Forest Service to be able to fuel reduction up there in Schofield Mountain Homes. Also, there's fuel reduction work in the planning process at Clear Creek, at the Alpine School District Clear Creek Camp, and also at Lower Fish Creek. We've had people in and out of there half a dozen times this year, walking and checking and getting GPS tracks. And it sounds like that's moving forward with contractors and work that that myself as a warden and my assistant will be doing in some of those areas. Also, there's been 2 permits that I've issued, burn permits during closed fire season. As people are aware, closed fire seasons from June 1st to October 31st. Anytime they want to burn wood or something that way, trash from their yard, limbs, they have to get a permit from me. So I wrote 2 permits before June 29th when the state went into fire restrictions. With the fire restrictions, for those who are here, means you can't have any fires burning, even though it is a closed fire season, without a waiver by our division. If you get caught burning without that waiver and a fire restriction, it's a Class B misdemeanor. Also, there's been 3 waivers issued by Carbon County this year for fireworks at Schofield, for Carbon County, and at Spring Glen due to the fire restriction order that was in place. The county drafted a waiver and was able to get that to those people so they could have their fireworks shows. Also, the Carbon County Sheriff's Department has issued 3 citations for fire restriction order violations this year during this fire restriction close season, which again is a Class B misdemeanor. So those people who receive those citations will be visiting Justice Court, and they'll decide there with the judge what will be their punishment, whether they pay fines or it could be jail time with that too, depending on what the judge decides to do. Also, fire restrictions are still in effect. And I've also been out with Price City Fire back in June. They had a fire prevention program that they do with the elementary schools every year. I was up there with my engine and let the kids go through the engine and see some stuff there, and participated there with Price City. And I've also participated with that first night out at the fairgrounds they had a couple weeks ago. Had my engine up there and met with the public that came through and let the kids climb around the engine and play with the lights and sirens and had fun that way. So I have been doing some public.
And my kids thought that was pretty cool.
Okay, that's what drew all the kids to the truck, was when I finally turned the sirens on. That's how you get the kids to come and look at the fire trucks, as lights and sirens. So, but that's what's happening in a nutshell. Do you have any questions for me?
I do. So it's pretty common to have like a fire pit, a developed fire pit in somebody's yard. You said no burning of weeds and stuff. Does that include those fire pits if it's a developed fire pit?
No, if it's a developed fire pit, they can have a campfire in there as long as that's what it's used for and a developed pit.
Okay.
Yeah, what that restriction refers to is no welding, no grinding, no burning what you could regularly do thrown on the ground in the closed fire season. Also, when you open flames, they can still have their barbecuers, grills, stuff like that.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Item number 10, consideration and possible approval of a creation of a redevelopment area. Seth, Christian, who's
Commissioners,
gonna take this one?
I think Seth will tell you the most about this. This really is not the creation of a redevelopment area, but basically the designation of a community. They used to call them they don't have redevelopment areas anymore. It would be a community
reinvestment area.
Reinvestment area.
CRA.
And Seth can tell you about where that's at and what the benefits are, and I think we'd like some input from you as to areas that you want to include in such a such an area.
With some of the development, some of the companies that have come and asked, if wanting to come in, if you look in your packet, there's the area that we're talking about is what is the known as the industrial park, or Carbon County's industrial park, coming out on Highway 10, where the search and rescue buildings are. That area was owned by the county. It's been developed, mostly developed, but when it was developed in a way that before they had the rules that you had to create a reinvestment area or a project area for it. The county still owns quite a bit of dirt out there, and along with that, if we want to be able to further develop that, it needs to be set up into a development area. On the map that you have, it's that it includes the industrial park, but we also brought it across the road so that the other side of the road could also be developed. Most of that is mining and grazing is how it's zoned. Thinking that if that area is going to grow, they'd want to develop into both sides of the street. But that is the project area that we're looking at doing. We haven't formally advertised it, but that is one of the areas that we've looked at. We also wanted to get out there to be able to say, this is an area we're looking at developing. There will be we're not requesting any kind of action from the commission tonight. Those will be coming in the next, couple of commission meetings, but we wanted to get it out there. And also, understanding that there's probably some other areas in the county that we would like to encourage development. In order for a developer to be able to come in and qualify for state tax incentives or anything else, it needs to be set up in a project area. So if there are other areas that we want to encourage growth in, for instance out at the airport or whatever, we need to start drafting those and be able to say, this is, draw it on a map, and say this is the area we're looking at, and then we can begin to get all the documentation done so that if growth is going to happen there, we're ready for them. And that's one area that we've looked at, we've identified, we've kind of drawn the line, but for formal action to be set up as an area in the future, we wanted the commissioners to be able to see it and say, this is the area we're wanting. You can add to it. You can make it smaller or bigger or whatever it is. We've included a piece of state land in there. Thinking that if it's possible, if it doesn't develop, if the state didn't chose to sell it, then they could develop it. But if not, it stays because they don't pay taxes anyway. So, and we will have some development with the Community Reinvestment Agency coming up in the next meeting or two. So we wanted to get it out on people's radar.
So what we'd have to do is designate the, you have to first pass a resolution in favor of developing a plan for that particular area. Then you have to have a public hearing for the plan, and finally an ordinance adopting the area plan.
Can any of that be done today?
No.
Okay, this is just an informational meeting, informational discussion item.
Yes. And
okay.
You got your information now. I think if you think of areas that you want to have included in that proposed area, please bring that to me so that I can include that in the resolution that would then come before you formally at another meeting.
Yeah. So included in that, in your packet's also the list of parcels that would be affected by it. The resolution will give a list of parcels, specific list of all the parcels that are going to be affected, so it can move forward and we can continue.
Well, very good.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all your work on that.
Well, do we need to acknowledge?
I don't think you need to take any action on that. You can just go to the next item.
Item number 11 on the agenda is a consideration of possible approval of a Carbon County resolution number 2017-07 opposing the closing of the Nuck-Woodard Road. Before we get into that, as has been circulated, there was a press release of sorts that was sent out by the Forest Service, and I'd like to read that into the record. It says, talking points, Nuck-Woodard Road closure. The Farron District of the Manti-La-Sal National Forest has withdrawn its proposal to close a 5-mile segment of Nuck-Woodard Road from September 5th until snow. The road provides access to a scenic area, which is also a hunting area on the forest, and the proposal was intended as a compromise, giving non-motorized users and motorized users access to the road segment at different times of the year. The greatest management problems the forest must resolve are the conflicts between various uses of the forest. Often the preferred use of the forest by one group is incompatible with the preferred use of another group. This is one of those cases. Though the district never intended to close the road permanently, a great deal of misinformation and misunderstanding developed around the proposal. Many confused this proposed action with the forest plan revision activities, travel planning, wilderness designation, and inventory roadless areas. This proposal was unrelated to any of these activities. Continued misunderstanding was not helpful to the public nor to the continued progress of the forest plan revision. As emotions escalated surrounding the issue, the district decided to withdraw its proposed seasonal restriction until the time when a robust public process can take place before a decision is made. The forest will continue its efforts to resolve conflicts among recreational users with the intention of providing an enjoyable outdoor experience for those who come to the Manti-La-Sal National Forest. This was released to us in a meeting yesterday with the Forest Service, so any proposed closures are now lifted, which will be open from snow melt until snow fly.
Commissioner Hopes, with this letter rescinding the potential closure that people were concerned about, we have been preparing a resolution in opposition that was suggested that maybe it was a moot point, but I asked Christian to go ahead and continue to formalize that resolution. I feel that how that letter reads, it really leaves it open-ended for them to come back and attempt another temporary closure. And I think it would just be prudent for us on record to express the views of those we represent as county commissioners, that we are in opposition to its closing, and that we would recommend any future conversations of that to happen with the county and with the public, and that we would, you know, as we discussed yesterday with the Forest Service, we would be willing to help further their communication to the citizens so that they know what the plans are of the Forest Service, and that we can all be a little more transparent and work together a little bit better. But that we should probably continue. My recommendation is that we would continue and pass this resolution. Would you give me a moment to read that? Yeah. So appreciate you reading the letter from the Forest Service. The resolution as drafted by Christian reads, a resolution of the Carbon County Board of Commissioners opposing the closure of Nuck-Woodard Road. Whereas the United States Forest Service recently announced a plan to temporarily close Nuck-Woodard Road in the fall of 2017. And whereas Carbon County recognizes that Nuck-Woodard Road has played a historical role in Carbon County for hunters and recreationalists and is used by the public presently. And whereas Carbon County has historically maintained Nuck-Woodard Road and considers it to be an official county road. And whereas Nuck-Woodard Road is also available for use by residents of Clear Creek in the event of an emergency, were to close the main road out of Clear Creek. Whereas Carbon County has learned that the USFS no longer plans to close the Nuck-Woodard Road, but has reserved the right to consider closing it in the future. Now, therefore, Carbon County approves and acknowledges the action of the USFS to forego its plan to temporarily close the road, and does hereby resolve, 1, that it is opposed to the closure of Nuck-Woodard Road on either temporary or permanent basis, requests that the USFS consult with Carbon County prior to formulating any future plans to close the road, and 3, requests that any future closure of the road first obtain approval from Carbon County Board of Commissioners, and 4, authorizes the filing of objections with appropriate agencies and courts in the event that USFS proceeds to close the road in the future. Adopted, approved, and ordered with spaces for our signature. So, Commissioner, don't know if you would like to have any further dialogue on that or any additional explanation. I think that a lot of us are all on the same page now. The Forest Service has recognized in their letter that the needs of one small group were outweighed by the needs of another, and they have lifted the ban or lifted the temporary closure. I think Christian has done an excellent job in formalizing this resolution, expressing our viewpoints as commissioners and as representatives of the voters here in Carbon County.
The only thing that I would add to this is just maybe a calming voice that to every issue there are two sides. Please be aware that while you are winning today, somebody else is losing, and their feelings, their thoughts, their intentions are still prevalent. I am in favor of this resolution. I don't think there is a need for closing this road. All of the roads in the county, I don't see at this point a reason for closing any of the other roads that we use for recreation. I think this is our backyard. This is where we play. This is how we recreate and have fun. And we shouldn't be taking away from one group to give to another. So just be aware of that as we talk and as we communicate. Try not to point fingers at one person or one group, but talk to the issue, not the person. Just as a civil point of matter. That's all I'm trying to say. So we have a resolution, 2017-1. Do you have a?
I'll move to approve.
I'll step down and second that. Any further discussion?
Just want to thank everyone for their community support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I believe that's all for the agenda. I'll take a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
We are adjourned. Thank you.